Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode of Market Insights. This time we're talking about a 10-bagger that Ian King and his team recently recognized on electric vehicle maker Tesla. And I think you're really going to enjoy what we have to say here. So to join me to talk about this, of course, is Ian King. Ian, how are you?
Doing great, Brian. I'm excited to be here and talk about my favorite stock, Tesla.
That's right. And before we get into Tesla, I want to tell everybody, please do subscribe to the channel. Click a like, and also leave a comment. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, so we know what to talk about or maybe even avoid in the future. Ian, speaking of market moving up, positions moving higher, you have a service called Automatic Fortunes, as most people that are watching know, and as I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. But that's actually a perfect literal title. In August of last year, you and your team recommended Tesla stock at $234 a share, which on a split adjusted basis today would be about $48 a share, 234 divided by 5. And I mean, it was really amazing, especially for the cost of your newsletter. So you sold the first half. I've got some numbers on this board over here. I understand they're not super easy to read, but you sold the first half in July for more than $1,500. So we're talking more than $1,300 more than you actually paid for the shares. You sold your first half of the position. And obviously that was a great trade. That was a great, you locked in both gains as well as got your money back. And then last week, literally at the height of the Tesla all-time high, you decided to sell the other half of your position. It was a 10-bagger. You literally achieved a 10-bagger in just over a year, in 13 months. A lot of people talk about 10-baggers. First, few achieve them, and secondarily, many achieve them over the course of 10 years, 20 years, lifetimes. So first, I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your thought process. We know that you like Tesla. We've heard you talk about it a lot on these airwaves, but also could you talk kind of more specifically about your thought process with respect to selling last week? How did you know, basically?
Yeah, it's a good question, Brian. I wish there was like a scientific formula behind it. I guess, being around the markets for 25 years, I feel like I've seen it all, and I've seen manias come and go and stocks come and go. But before people accuse me of heresy, I just want to say I am still a huge Tesla bull. I'm bullish on the company. I mean, I believe that they are going to be the number one electric vehicle company over the next couple of decades, and I think they're going to really disrupt transportation as we know it. Having said that, like the way the stock has been trading lately, I just feel like there's just been a different type of investor who's entered the fray. And I just want to say, when we first recommended Tesla, we got some actual hate mail. Like, people wrote in and said, "What are you doing? Like, this company doesn't make any money. Their cars have gotten not so great reviews." And when I heard that, when we first recommended it, I knew we were on track for something, because I'm sorry, when the amount of, when I talk about positioning, it's like when people don't believe something could be true, and there's a lot of shorts in the stock, and there was always a good bear case for it, as there were for great growth stocks like Amazon and Apple always had, those bear cases that everyone was always pitching. But when we sold it, now I have people saying, why are we selling it at this point? Because the upside is so high. So I just try to find where there are more people leaning in one direction on the trade. And when we bought it, I felt like everyone was leaning kind of bearish because they just raised capital below $200 a share. Elon Musk was still dealing with the SEC. And there were a lot of questions that remained unanswered. So our risk reward was on the bullish side. Now I think it's on the bearish side, just because you have so many people that have been converted to Tesla believers for one reason or another. And not that I don't think that they can execute. It's just, and I think I do think they can. I just think that the assumption and the valuation of the company is a lot higher than what we willing to pay for it. So we did put a sell alert out there on September 1st, and just, happens we got lucky that day and it started to sell off and the NASDAQ sold off. So everything kind of tanked. I do want to buy back into the stock at some point. Like, I don't think that the stock is done with. I just don't think after it's dropped 20 or 30% from the highs that we're ready yet. I think we still have a little bit more of a correction to go. So I don't know if that answered your question, but
it was great as to your thought process also, where we talked about buy the rumor, sell the news. Right now, the rumor is that this stock is going to, I guess split adjusted to, 2,500 or, some bigger number. But when you bought, the rumor was this thing's going to zero. So as you say, your downside was limited when you bought, your upside likely more limited when you sold.
Yeah. And, I want to throw up the chart because I do want to mention one thing, and I think this can help a lot of viewers out when they're looking at a stock and trying to determine whether or not what's the appropriate time to sell. If you look at the rally from mid-August to early September, it just became a different type of stock. It wasn't like people gradually buying the stock. Yeah. Every morning you woke up and it was up 10 or 15%, and it was just that people wanted to get a piece of this thing. And it turned into a mania. We've seen the same type of mania happen more recently in 2017 with Bitcoin. Towards the top, it felt like the same thing. And I can't really think off the top of my head of other stocks that have experienced this type of kind of mania where the price is always on CNBC. It's all anybody wants to talk about. Whenever we do a Tesla video, it gets a lot more views than when we just talk about tech stocks in general. And so when you have that type of overwhelming public interest, I think that, anyone who's going to buy the stock is probably already in it. And people who come late are those weak hands that if it starts to sell off, they were only in it because it was going up every day, not because they believe in electric vehicles. And so that's when I believe it was really, time to take our profits and move on and find some other places to put our capital.
That's a great place to leave this. So Ian, thank you for joining me this week.
Thanks, Brian. Always great to see you.